Hey everybody, I'm going to do a brief video here just on applied psychoanalytic or psychodynamic theory. These terms, this seems to be a little newer term that I use. I was at a training where they were using that to kind of make it a little bit more dynamic and more up to date, if you will. But of course, this is Freudian theory. And, there's quite a few concepts of Freud that, can't really be proven by research, not that they're not useful, but one in particular that is useful is the unconscious, and that we do know exists, that we all have an unconscious, and that it's a big portion of our being, and it affects our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. And the tip of the iceberg would be the part that we are consciously aware of, but a big portion of what's affecting us is below awareness, okay, much like the iceberg. Now, where that can come to play is in the theory of personality, and I'm sorry, it's a bit confusing, but Freud's theory of personality is that we have an id, ego, and ego. The id wants to eat and sleep and have sex and fight without any consideration of others. The superego is kind of this inculcated values, perfectionism, the use of shoulds and oughts and musts, very demanding. And even the thought of doing something wrong could trigger the superego. Now, Freud talked about these kind of taking up psychic energy. One thing you can do is have people draw, like, who's in charge right now? Like if you had somebody who's really hungry, the id may be really big compared to a smaller ego and a smaller super ego, just because hunger's driving them. And then how does that affect thoughts and feelings and behaviors? Now, of course, the same could be said for addiction. So that's one way, but having people actually ask them, who's in charge right now? Is it my id? Is it my ego, my superego? And the ego is the logical, rational, who's really trying to balance the energy and make peace with the id and the superego here. So one way this can be applied is asking clients, who's in charge? Once you explain the different components. Eric Byrne, a Canadian-born psychiatrist, tried to make this a little more user-friendly by calling, the superego the parent, the ego the adult, and then the id the child. And then each of these have components as well. Again, I've seen this used with clients by, like, all right, we've got a parent, adult, a child. The parent can have a critical parent and a nurturing parent. The child can have a curious child and maybe a bit of a mischievous child, among other things. Kind of like parts work with internal family systems. You can just ask people, like, hey, when you acted that way in your relationship or on your job, who was in charge, the parent or adult, the child? Was that helpful? Did that serve? How might you enlist more adult, or how might you enlist more child to be more creative and to be free, or more parents to, restrict yourself or to nurture yourself when you're hurting, and so forth. So in terms of application, I think these theories of personality can be helpful. And a lot of these, according to Freud, is that a lot of within the id, ego, and superego can be unconscious, and then how that might affect, our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, and so forth. So just one way. And then taking that a little bit further, one way we can kind of explore this and how the unconscious is affecting is by transference. And so we can actually ask clients, hey, if you start to get strong feelings within the counseling session, that would be really ripe stuff to talk about. If you're angry with me, or if there's, if you find yourself looking up to me or whatever, let's process that within this relationship, in the professional relationship of counseling, so that you can get a better feel for what might also be playing out in your other relationships, on the job, intimate partners, friends, and so forth. And then the next thing is making clients aware, but also this is when we use supervision, is our own countertransference. So this can be, what do we experience with clients when we are in session with them? And we may make them aware that that's going to be a part of the session too, is that if I find myself getting triggered, or if I find myself, perhaps even, this is Carl Rogers, getting bored, that we may in a professional manner talk about this, all within the scope of, and I love this from existential therapy, kind of the microcosm of the microcosm. If this is the counseling relationship and this is the larger world, that if we attend to the professional counseling relationship, that might carry over into your relationships in the larger world, again, with your boss and with your partner and friends and kids and so forth. So these are ways that unconscious material can kind of show up. The transference, clearly somebody could be really mad at you and that's how they reacted when they were with their dad or their mom. And your own countertransference may be similar to how other people experience this person. So being able, when and appropriate, to share this could be helpful in terms of the counseling sessions. And then lastly, though, is always checking in with clients. At the end, the session rating scale is certainly helpful, but just doing some type of quality assurance at the end of each session to find out what's helpful and what's not, what they're looking for. That's an important piece. And we do know that actually helps build the rapport and helps clients feel more comfortable in being able to talk to us, which actually speaks to this. How can we have professional relationships and then take them out into the world? Now, I am going to tell you, I think I've been teaching theories for over 20 years. It's important to learn about all the different theories and techniques. There is an adage in the behavioral health counseling world that the longer you're actually counseling folks in terms of number of years, the more of a humanist you become. And I would agree with that. But that is not to say that the only theories we need to study are, person-centered by Rogers, or the existential therapies by, Frankl, or practiced by Yalom or Bugental. We could even throw in Gestalt, not necessarily how Fritz Perls practiced it. He was a bit of a showboat. But just the fact that we are going to respect, the personist and the humanist perspective. We respect the power of the person, and they have the answers within them, and in the right conditions they can come forward. That said, I think understanding the different theories adds to our ability to be good counselors in general, but also humanists. Okay, so let me know if this was helpful. Please like, share, and subscribe. I'd like to reach many people out there. Let's just fill up YouTube with a bunch of stuff that can help people thrive. And also, I'd like to hear your comments about what's helpful and what you would like to see other future content. All right, y'all, take care. Good luck with all this counseling.